Well, this seems like the camera that no one was expecting. If you were to tell me that 6 months ago Sony would release the A7R5 and then today they were going to jam all of those features into a smaller camera body that's 29% lighter and 53% smaller by volume, I would say that you are crazy. And if you told me that this new camera would be $1,000 less than the A7R5, I would say that you're insane. But that's exactly what Sony did. This is the brand new A7CR. So this camera shares the same body as the all-new A7C II, and it's very similar to the A6700 body as well, just with a much worse grip. The grip is better than the one on the original A7C though, so that is good. There is a front dial now, which is a welcome addition, a mode switch sub-dial, and a viewfinder that really doesn't rival the one on the A7R5. Now the specs are nearly identical, however, with a few small changes. This sensor is a 61 megapixel back illuminated Exmor-R with the Bion's XR image processing engine. The dedicated AI processing unit is here as well with auto framing, but not the fancy subject framing that we saw with the A7R5 that I've already forgot the name of. There is IBIS, but it's only 7 stops of compensation instead of 8, which is a bit unfortunate. Still, the handheld video I got out of this new camera is impressive. You don't really need a gimbal if you can walk with some level of stability. Autofocus is 693 autofocus points covering 79% of the image area. You can shoot up to 8 frames per second mechanical and 7 frames per second electronically. 4K 60p 422 with 10-bit colors and 16-bit raw output. S-Cinetone, S-Log3, user assignable LUTs, breathing compensation, focus map, in-camera time lapses, anti-flicker shooting. There's a lot of stuff packed into this little camera body. There's only one SD card slot though, and no full-size HDMI port, and no crazy tilting and articulating screen. You have to pay extra for that. The menu system is all new and refined, just like on all of the modern Sony bodies, with swipe gestures, customizable buttons that make it simple to create easy workflows. Now, I'm not going to spend a ton of time going over all of the specs of this new camera because it is identical basically to the A7R5, which we all know and love at this point. But what I do want to spend time talking about is the idea behind this camera, because I frankly have no idea. Now, I understand what Sony is trying to do. They're trying to fill every single gap to where there might be a need or a desire in a camera with an actual product. But the A7CR is a tough one. Part of me thinks they just made this camera because they could, and it's kind of like an experiment. We'll see whether it does well or whether it doesn't do so well. Now, obviously, they know that it's very capable because the A7R5, which this effectively is a very, very capable camera. And if people have loved the A7R5, why wouldn't they love the same thing in a smaller camera body, right? But the entire 2 weeks that I've had this camera, I keep asking myself, who is this camera designed for? And I'm having a hard time coming up with that answer. Nature photographers who want a smaller camera body, wedding photographers who don't need dual card slots or a usable grip, portrait photographers who don't mind a 0.7 magnification viewfinder instead of the 0.9 that you get in the A7R5. Look, I don't mean to sound negative, but those are actual thoughts going through my mind. Now, this camera is $1,000 less than the A7R5, but for that $1,000, you are giving up the grip, the fancy articulating dual tilt-up screen, the viewfinder, the dual card slots, the little extra stop of stabilization. It seems like you're giving up a lot. And again, this is coming just 6 months or so after the release of that A7R5, which is incredible. And this camera now effectively completes the downsizing of all of Sony's major full-frame cameras. The A7S III has the ZV-E1, the A7 IV has the A7C II, and now the A7R5 has this A7CR. Now, all that's left for Sony to release is an A1C, in which they take that 30 frames per second, $6,000 Sony A1, and they put it into this camera body and sell it for, let's say, half the price. I don't know. It's crazy times that we are living in. And I want to reiterate, this is a very capable camera, extremely capable. It is overkill, I think, for me personally. That's why, for me, the A7C II appeals a little bit more, because 33 megapixels is more than enough for me. 61 megapixels is a lot. But if you are out shooting nature, if you're shooting high resolution photos, Obviously, this makes a whole lot of sense. And if you were to compare the images taken out of this A7CR and the A7R5, you're not going to see any difference because it's the same processor, same sensor, same colors, really same everything. The only difference is the guy with the A7R5 would have paid an extra $1,000 to get the exact same shot. And I do think from that standpoint, this is a smart move by Sony, because I don't think people who bought the A7R5 6 months ago are going to be upset with this new release. They have a number of improvements over the A7CR still, and for many working professionals, things like dual card slots are non-negotiable. I'd imagine if this camera had the 8-stop IBIS, the crazy screen, the same viewfinder, a larger grip, dual card slots, and came in at $1,000 less, there would be some furious Sony shooters, but we avoided that. So it's a good camera. I do wish that the grip was a little bit larger and better, but beyond that, I have very few complaints about it. And we'll see how it does in the market. This might be the camera to get in the future. Anything is possible nowadays, but certainly with the popularity of the A7R5, there's no reason why this camera shouldn't be successful. What I'm wishing for now is for Sony to make an RX1R3, a super compact, high-resolution, fixed-lens, full-frame camera with improved controls, weather sealing, amazing autofocus, a great sharp lens on it. That's the camera that we need right now, something to make the Leica boys jealous. And if Sony can pull off this stunt 6 months after a new camera release, there's no reason why they can't pull this RX1R3 rabbit out of their hat, since it's been, what, 8 years since the release of the RX1R2? Sony, if you're watching, make it happen. But that's going to be it for my review of this new A7CR. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. Were you expecting this camera? Are you impressed by it? Would you go out and buy it? Would you pick up this thing over an A7R5? Always curious to read your guys' comments. As always, thank you guys so much for all of those comments, all of your likes, all of your support. Stay tuned for more. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.